Hey everybody, KMO here. And yesterday, the Biden team announced that Kamala Harris would be the vice presidential candidate. From my perspective, she is the worst possible candidate. So bad, in fact, and here's the headline. Before this, I was never going to vote for Biden. Never. Now, I've never voted for a Republican in a presidential election. I did vote for Ron Paul in a primary once, but I consider Ron Paul a libertarian with an R next to his name. But I'm not a Republican voter. Didn't vote for Trump in 2016, despite what you might read in Jim Kunstler's book. I'm voting for Trump. Before this announcement, I was going to either write in Andrew Yang, or I was going to vote for the Green Party candidate, or, something along those lines, throwing my vote away. The only effective protest vote now is Trump, as far as I'm concerned. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris together are just a tough-on-crime, race-baiting, drug war, rah-rah, war criminal ticket. From my perspective, if you're voting for Biden, now that Harris is on the ticket, you either don't understand their legislative histories, and in Harris's case, her history as a prosecutor in California. Either you don't understand that, or you have no sense of right and wrong. Now anytime you say, if you do such and such, then either this or that is true of you, that's always a flattening of reality. I understand that. But honestly, how many lives have those two destroyed in terms of sending so many people to prison, and in the case of Kamala Harris, making sure that the prison population stayed high so that, that slave labor could be sold off to corporations. Slavery is legal in this country so long as the person who is being compelled to labor without pay, and without the right to leave or to disengage from that labor, as long as they have been convicted of a crime, slavery is legal. That's not an exaggeration. That's not an interpretation. Read the amendment to the Constitution that abolished slavery. It abolishes slavery except for punishment for crime where the person has been convicted of a crime. That's the language in the Constitution. Most slavery was banned. Not all. And what an amazing coincidence that of the population that can still legally be enslaved, they're not mostly black, they're mostly white, because this is a mostly white country, but black and brown people are certainly overrepresented in the penal system. They are certainly overrepresented in the ranks of Americans who are forced to labor without compensation and without the right to stop. That's slavery. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are pro-slavery. Now, I don't believe that Joe Biden picked Kamala Harris. I think this was probably Obama's pick. Because Joe Biden is so incapable of accepting, with even a false facade of grace, any pushback whatsoever. And she savaged him in the debates, or tried to, in a really underhanded way. So I don't expect this is going to benefit me at all. To the extent that I have a brand, it is as a thoughtful person, and there are some thoughtful people who support Trump, but it's a tough sell. It is a hard sell. And I don't expect my friends to appreciate my reasoning. I don't expect a lot of my podcast listeners to appreciate my reasoning. But there it is. I'm just done with libertarians. Anybody who argues against universal health care, I just can't support anymore. I just cannot support them. So even though I voted libertarian for decades, I can't vote libertarian again this time. So green, maybe, but to me the Greens seem just as nutty as the nuttiest of the Democrats. Their policy proposals, while vague, while at the level of general principles, I can get behind them. Environmentalism, criminal justice reform. I'm not going to call up their party platform right now and go through it point by point, but in general, I agree with their priorities and with their goals, but the Greens are not important. What's important here is Trump. Do I like Trump? Not particularly. Did I vote for him before? No. Do I want to vote for him now? No. As as the Democrats like to say, as Noam Chomsky himself has argued recently in the Settle for Biden campaign, given the dynamics of, American elections in our flawed democracy, you don't vote for what you want, you vote against what you don't want. I'm voting against Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Particularly because I think Joe Biden, I'd be surprised if he finished his first term. Back in January, I was saying there's no way Biden will be the pick because he's not going to be able to withstand the scrutiny and just to keep up, his energy, to keep up his composure and his health on a grueling campaign. Well, there is no grueling campaign. Joe gets to sit in his basement and do nothing and say nothing and basically just run on people's vague notions of what he stands for, which, they think of him as Obama third term, which, in a lot of ways is right. I think a Biden administration would be Obama 3.0, which I think is unacceptable. I mean, Obama is a great speaker. He's a very charismatic guy. I would much rather listen to him deliver the State of a Nation than Donald Trump. Donald Trump, to me, just listening to his voice is nails on a chalkboard. But, Donald Trump is hated by the Republican Party establishment. The Republicans and the Democrats now are like this. They love each other. The Democrats are falling all over themselves to rehabilitate George W. Bush at this point. Somebody whom, a few years back, they rightly called a war criminal. And now, because he's part of the Republican establishment and hates Trump, now they love him. Well, if the Democratic establishment and the Republican establishment both hate Trump, that's a point in his favor. 2 points in his favor, as far as I'm concerned. So, you can invoke an image, a stereotypical image of a Trump supporter as a loud, abrasive, not very smart, authoritarian in their psychological makeup, proto-fascist, and sure, lots of people adhere to that stereotype. That's why stereotypes exist, because lots and lots of people embody them such that, you've encountered those sorts of people regularly. When you see a caricature of them, you recognize that. You recognize that as an apt description of a certain extreme example of people who, express particular views or evince particular behaviors. For every stereotype, there is somebody who strives to embody it, and there are other people who embody it without even trying. And there are people who don't embody it but get caught up, who get broad-brushed with it and are hurt by it. So why would I announce this? Why don't I just be one of those secret Trump voters? One of those people who wants to just stay in the no-hassle zone, not get hate mail, not have friends and relatives either try to convince you to do otherwise or, threaten to ostracize you. Why not just fly under the radar and, vote for Trump on the DL? Well, one, I'm just cantankerous, as you certainly know. And two, I'm sure there are a lot of people who think and feel as I do on this topic, but who have straight jobs, or who have more of a stake, who are more vulnerable to being canceled or ostracized, blacklisted, all those lovely behaviors that we used to associate with the anti-communist, Red Scare, Joseph McCarthy era, demagogues. And now all of those behaviors, all of those strategies, those are all perfectly respectable mainstream Democrat strategies. Well, the Democrats have become the villains. Kamala Harris, no exaggeration, she's just a straight up villain. She has worked to keep the prisons full. She has worked to keep people who were innocent from being exonerated. She is a villain. She is somebody who thrives in the context of the drug war. Who does that? Villains. She is a villain. Yesterday, when I heard this news, I came out and sat at this table with this very camera, and I was much more animated and much more, less temperate, we'll say. And I said things in that video which are more extreme than I'll say today now that I've had some time to think about it. And fortunately, I had to go to work and shoot some video at a municipal meeting here before I could get that posted. So, You're getting the toned down a day later. KMO's taken several deep breaths. He's not mad anymore, but I'm resolute. Just sitting this one out is not good enough. I'm voting for Trump. And, you know, at this point, as far as I'm concerned, Trump is the only credible protest vote. Now, I live in Vermont. Donald Trump is not going to take Vermont. You know, Biden and Harris are going to take Vermont in a landslide. It won't even be close. And so that's another reason for me to say this in a video, because my just going into the voting booth and, you know, putting the X next to his name is not going to change anything. It's not going to send a message to anybody. My only opportunity to send a message is to craft an actual message, which I then share with, you know, however many people look at this video. Unless YouTube grabs it and shows it to a bunch of people who aren't familiar with me, that's going to be 250 people maybe who listen to this. A fair number of whom are going to agree with me, although they won't say so in the comments. You know, maybe you will. I'm not selling you short. I acknowledge that while I endure certain, I can't call them hardships, because I've been watching videos about, you know, people who are trying to keep their heads above water financially in the Philippines right now. Compared to them, I live a life of luxury and ease and security. But in the context of the American system, I am among the precariat. But as a member of the precariat, I don't have a straight job that I can lose. I'm not a professor somewhere, I'm not a teacher somewhere. You know, I can't get fired. I cannot get fired from what I do. But I do want to add my voice and this position that I'm articulating to the public conversation. Biden-Harris, awful. Worst case scenario, President Kamala Harris. This is not a time to double down on mass incarceration and the drug war and to take a tough on crime message except for rioting. Rioting is okay, but we're really going to come down on, you know, hardcore on poor people wherever possible. This is not the time for that. This is not the time to coddle Wall Street. You know, this is not the time to coddle Silicon Valley. This is a moment for a populist uprising. And Harris, Biden, that ain't it. Trump ain't it either, but Trump at this point is still the anti-establishment character. You know, he is still the protest vote choice. And I'm protesting. I'm not carrying a sign, I'm not breaking windows, I'm not throwing bottles of piss at cops. I'm posting a video saying, Democrats, you have lost the plot. You have lost it. You now openly represent the plutocratic, oligarchic strata of this society, and that's unacceptable. Not only will I not support it, I must speak out against it. Thus this video. So, ask me a question. Not a rhetorical question, a genuine question. If you think this is a mistake, that I really should suck it up and settle for Biden and Harris, let me know why in the comments. All right. Talk to you again soon. Stay well.